Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we're going to be talking about how to make an Eldar Ulthwe themed list work in 10th edition. So as you guys know, craft world bonuses have been basically destroyed in 10th edition. They got rid of all the specific craft world and stuff like that, and they replaced it with detachments. And one of the saddest losses, in my opinion, was the loss of the special Ulthwe craft world rules. They were so cool. You got bonuses on psychic powers. You got extra durability against mortal wounds. It was just a really cool faction ability. They had really cool rules. And a lot of us really liked it because we really like psychic powers. And because psychic powers took a bit of a hit in 10th edition, a lot of us were a little bit disappointed. Now, even though future detachments will obviously come out with some sort of psychic detachment, right? Where Farseers and Warlocks get a bunch of bonuses to their attacks, we don't have that yet. So what do we do if we love Ulthwe, but we really don't have any rules to support that kind of army anymore? Well, I've done some digging, and I think I've come up with a few ways to at least partially replicate that raw psychic power that you enjoyed in 9th edition with your Warlocks and your Farseers. So without further ado, let's go and dive right into the video and start talking about how to make an Ulthwe themed list work in 10th edition. But first, a quick overview of what we're going to be looking at in today's video. We're going to be talking about the list of units common to an Ulthwe army. What does it take to make an Ulthwe themed list and what that even means? The strengths and weaknesses of an Ulthwe themed list in 10th edition, the insane psychic combo that you need to try in your army, and an example Ulthwe list of mine with commentary and analysis. So the list of units common to an Ulthwe army include Guardians. So Ulthwe is known for their fearsome Black Guardians, who are supposedly supposed to be the best in the galaxy. They used to have special bonuses and stratagems that would actually make them better in 9th edition. So they had the Black Guardian stratagem and so forth. They do not have that anymore, but Guardians are very good at primary objective play. So Guardian Defenders good at holding objectives and gaining fate dice from it. Storm Guardians can make objectives sticky, which is pretty useful situationally, unless your mission that you're playing has sticky objectives already. Having sticky objectives is always a good thing for an army that doesn't really hold objectives well. Support weapons are also on there. They're run by Guardians, and they're for board control and debuffs. They are nerfed, unfortunately, so they're a little bit weaker than they were before. I would say this army type would be much more powerful in the beginning of the edition, obviously, but support weapons are still pretty good at board control and passing out hit debuffs. So they are a valid choice for an Ulthwe army as well. Warlocks, obviously, are great givers of buffs and short-range damage. Farseers are there for support, and they also do some fairly good damage with things like Eldritch Storm. Wind Riders are also Guardians, believe it or not, and they're your anti-infantry, so they're pretty hard-hitting. They get rerolls to hit against, units on objectives, so they're pretty strong. And lastly, you got your Warwalkers and Wraith Lords for your anti-large. And they're also good at scouting in the case of the Warwalkers and being able to defend your more fragile backline units as for the Wraith Lords. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of an Ulthwe themed list? Because in this edition, there's going to be some weaknesses. I think last edition, the really only weakness of the Ulthwe was the semi-low threat range of D-cannons. But now there's a little bit more weaknesses that you kind of have to factor in when choosing this type of army. So its strengths are that it has a lot of buffs and debuffs to spread around. You got Fortune, Guide, Doom, and Warlock powers all included. And these are all powerful buffs, and they're much easier to cast than last edition. So last edition, it was a little bit easier to cast with Ulthwe, but there was still a failure rate, right? Yeah, you pass your psychic test on 6s usually because of the +1, but if your opponent had anything to mess with you, you could still kind of fail some of those tests here and there. Now you're pretty much only going to fail on the roll of a 1 with Fortune and Guide, and of course Doom. And of course, because you're an Ulthwe themed list, you will be taking Eldrad Uthran, so you will be having access to that Doom power. They also have good damage coverage. So they have anti-infantry, they have anti-large, they kind of have all the tools you need to succeed in a game of 40k. But what are their weaknesses? Well, psychic weapons and units are vulnerable to certain attacks or abilities this edition. So there's a lot of anti-psyker out there, or feel no pain against psychic attacks, which is very problematic. If you brought this to a tournament against a list with a lot of anti-psyker tech, you would probably be at extreme disadvantage, which is unfortunate. The units are also expensive. Warlocks, for some reason, got a huge points increase in this edition, and I, for one, don't like it because they actually got a little bit worse. So I did a video on this a while back talking about how I thought Warlocks were pretty much dead on arrival competitively. And for the most part, outside of a few niche applications, they do. They're pretty much garbage. A lot of people don't take them, and for good reason. They're expensive, and they don't do a whole lot. However, there are some combos that you can pull off with them that are extremely powerful, but you do need to build for it. So keep that in mind as we continue the video. And lastly, they are a difficult army to manage well. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of working parts with an Ulthwe army. You know, you got your buffs and debuffs. You need to know when you need to be out of a transport, when you need to be in one, right? You need to know what units you're going to be casting your abilities on, and so forth. So there's a lot of things to consider. And for the Warlock powers, you're going to have to choose, right? Every single turn. Do I want to go with Conceal or Reveal? Or do I want to go with Quicken or Restrain? You're going to have to think about those things before you use them in any given turn. And sometimes you might want both, but you can't, right? Because you can't attach 2 Warlocks to a Guardian unit. So this is the kind of army that is a little bit difficult to manage if you don't know what you're doing. So it is an army for more advanced players to utilize and play with, which against another experienced opponent who knows your units well and knows what you're doing, this can be hard to kind of manage as well, because they're going to be able to counter some of your moves. And unless this army has perfect synergy, it often doesn't perform as well. And just to let you guys know something, the reason why Eldar were so powerful in the beginning of the edition was primarily because they were very easy to use. And the best and most competitive armies only had a couple of moving parts, right? If you look at the most competitive armies from the beginning of the editions, the ones that were getting like 75% win rate, crazy kind of win rates and stuff like that, you kind of see that, you know, they really didn't have a lot going on. A couple of units of Warp Spiders, you had your 3 Prisms, you had your Wraith Knight, you had your Farseer, and you were pretty much good. You had a couple of support models here and there for different things, but it was an easy army to manage. There really weren't a lot of combos involved and stuff like that, and it was very hard to deal with. So now that there's been nerfs and stuff like that, and Eldar players have had to branch out a little bit more, you have seen the tournament win rate scale back considerably. So just to answer that question for you guys sitting out there, were the Eldar balanced in this patch? Absolutely. And even though they're still one of the strongest, no one's arguing that, they're not unbeatable anymore. So I think you guys can, you know, it's time to stop complaining. I had one of my buddies the other day when I was playing this list in particular say that Eldar were still so broken that even their meme lists could wipe the floor with half of the factions in 40k, which would be really funny, but it's just not really true. And I wouldn't even say that the list I brought the other day was a meme list at all. It's actually pretty powerful, and I'll talk about why later in this video. Okay, so this is why this list can be powerful. And I say can be because you really have to get everything right in order to pull it off successfully. So this is an insane psychic combo with Warlock Conclaves that you can pull off with Falcons. So basically what you need is you need your Warlock Conclave, a max unit, 4, with a Farseer coming out of a Falcon. So already that's a lot of points, right? A lot of people are going to look at that and be like, well, that's not really points efficient. You know, I can get this, this, and this for the same cost as this combo. So this combo costs around 340 points, so it is a bit expensive. You know, you got your Farseer, your Max Conclave, and your Falcon. The Falcon, though, I really don't see as a tax. A lot of people will see it as a transport tax. I don't. I think the Falcon on its own is really good. But basically what this combo entails is you get your Warlocks, your Farseer, to come out of the Falcon via Deep Strike, or just, you know, moving up the board like normal. Your Falcon tags the target your Warlock unit is going to hit so that your Warlocks can get rerolls to wound. Now, Warlocks, while terrible in close combat now, are actually really good at shooting. Something Warlocks are actually better in now is shooting with their psychic ability. So they have the Destructor ability, which is essentially a heavy flamer. It's a strength 5, AP -1 attack. They get 4 of those, and they're auto hits. So they're like flamers. They have Torrent. Now, they are psychic attacks. They are weak against psychic effects, but otherwise, against normal units, they function exactly like a heavy flamer. And heavy flamers are powerful. So you get 46 auto attacks, plus 5 strength 9, AP 0, damage 3 attacks via the Singing Spears. So you also give them Singing Spears. Now, I say 5 because you're going to have a Farseer in the unit as well, and he is also, or she, is also going to have a Singing Spear. And even though, again, AP 0, it is strength 9, it is going to wound most infantry on, 2+ or maybe 3+, and each of them is going to be doing 3 damage. So it is a potentially it's another Marine killed. Now, the 46 auto hits are going to be very insane. So you're on average going to get about, 13 or 14. Well, 14 really on average. Auto hits against your target. And that's going to be with rerolls to wound. It's strength 5. You're going to be wounding on 3s with rerolls. So just let that sink in for a second, right? Heavy flamers with rerolls against infantry is very powerful. The Farseer is also going to get to use Eldritch Storm, which is a strength 6, AP -2, damage D3 blast weapon with D6 attacks. Again, this is a very powerful tool that's going to be rerolling their wounds. And I think really what makes the Warlock Conclave terrible is the fact that it's really expensive. But if you're using them in this way and you're giving them these buffs to buff up their damage, they can be quite effective. Also, if you manage this and you do not have to move your Falcon before you actually get into threat range with these guys, you dump them out, you move your 7 inches normally, you can actually charge afterward. So, they don't have great combat potential, but they still have damage 3 attacks. And because of the Falcon, you're also going to be rerolling wounds. So, rerolling wounds with your shooting and rerolling your wounds with damage. You can have one of these Falcons, in your army in Deep Strike. You can have one of them deployed on the board normally. You could have one of them maybe, in Strategic Reserve or something like that. Who knows? You can have them deployed in different ways. And all of them are getting full wound rerolls on their combat and on their shooting. So overall, for a 200-point unit, this can actually be very effective at dealing damage to infantry. And if the, infantry is of the heavier type, but doesn't have as much armor, it works even better because the Singing Spears are very powerful against 3 wound models. And this is basically what the list revolves around, having strong psychic attacks that when comboed together can do a lot of damage. Now, something I didn't mention was Eldrad. Eldrad gives +1 to wound. So you can doom a heavy target, like if you want to go after Terminators, you cast Doom on it, giving everything +1 to wound against it. This is really going to help your Warlocks because against Terminators, they'd normally be wounding on 4s with rerolls, but now they're wounding on 3s with rerolls, so they're getting a much better spread there. Your Singing Spears are still wounding on 2+, which is great. And you can use Mind War to get rid of that annoying Apothecary in there that gives them their feel no pain or whatever it is, right? So you can get rid of that character right away and just start doing massive damage to the enemy unit, so that even Terminators will start to feel the raw psychic power of your Warlocks. So, again, this is, in combination with each other, a really powerful thing that you can do to reduce enemy units to ash. Okay, so now that I've kind of gone over the basic idea of Ulthwe and how you should run it in 10th edition, I'm going to give you an example of an Ulthwe list of mine that I've been running over the last couple weeks with commentary and analysis. So let's get right into it. So this is going to be a 2,000 point strike force list. So for our characters, we're going to start off with an Autarch. He is our warlord. He is on foot. So this is the first time I've kind of done this. I figured since there's going to be Guardians in this list, that's more of a fluffy kind of thing anyway, that an Autarch would be a good choice. He does have a Dragon Fusion Gun, a Howling Banshee Mask, and a Starglaive. And it actually kind of makes the Storm Guardians a bit of a potent threat in close combat, especially since they're also a little bit more durable. And because you have extra access to Fortune, you can actually make a unit of Storm Guardians fairly tough. Eldrad is also in this list, of course. He is going to be in an Ulthwe list, right? He is the high Farseer of Ulthwe, best Farseer in the galaxy, and of course the biggest troll in the galaxy, because Mind War is a very good tool for removing characters. So something this list lacks is Rangers and precision weapons. So Eldrad kind of takes care of that a little bit for you and also gives you extra fate dice, as well as helping you to wound enemy targets easier. Again, most of your anti-infantry is strength 5, so having Doom at your disposal is very useful. We have 3 Farseers, All of them have Singing Spears, of course, and none of them have any enhancements or anything like that. So I found that having extra enhancements, like Readers of the Runes and stuff like that on Farseers, is kind of a waste now. So I just don't do it. We already have Branching Fates on a lot of these, so we can definitely use those Fate dice, those 1s and 2s, change them into 6s for our Warwalkers and Falcons. So we don't really need any enhancements on these guys or anything special. They're just mainly there for, extra toughness, making our army more durable, and also just for their raw psychic power. Again, all of them have Eldritch Storm, which when coming out of a Falcon can be extremely powerful. We also have a Farseer Skyrunner. He will be joining a unit of Wind Riders because, Guide is a great psychic power, and so is Eldritch Storm when considering the buff that Wind Riders have. Which, if you guys don't know, means that if you're firing at the closest target to that unit, you get to reroll hit rolls of 1. So it does help the Farseer hit a little bit better, but also, if the target is on an objective, you get to reroll all hits. So that works for Eldritch Storm, that works for the Shuriken Catapult that he has, and it also works for all the Shuriken Cannons in the Wind Rider unit. We also have a Warlock just on foot. We will either deploy him in the unit of Storm Guardians to give them extra advance rolls and, deny enemy charges, or we're just going to run him by himself so that he can be an action monkey and, perform secondary objectives and things like that. We have a Warlock Skyrunner who will either join the Wind Riders or will be alone, depending on what our secondary needs are. Obviously, when he's with the Wind Riders, he can, give them stealth and have them ignore cover. So that is pretty good. For our battle line, we have Guardian Defenders with a Bright Lance. And we have Storm Guardians. They have all the special weapons. So they have 2 Flamers, 2 Power Swords, 2 Fusion Guns. And the rest of them are just armed with the basic close combat weapons. We also have the Serpent Scale Platform, of course, for that 5+ invulnerable save. And since the Autarch is going to be going into this unit, he can use his special ability to allow the Storm Guardians to use grenades in extra time or, use lightning fast reflexes or something like that. So pretty good ability there just to make them a little bit tougher. So you can essentially have these guys at -1 to hit, -1 to wound with a 5+ invulnerable save. So all those stacking defensive buffs actually make Storm Guardians more durable than you'd think. As for our other data sheets, this is basically the crux of the list. We have 3 Falcons filled with Warlock Enclaves. They're going to come out with the Farseers and just unleash psychic hell upon anything that crosses their path. And having said that, we have the 3 Warlock Enclaves. All of them, of course, have Singing Spears to maximize their shooting, and they're armed normally with just the psychic shooting attack, Destructor, which is a heavy flamer. They also happen to be a grade tougher than regular Eldar. They have basically a permanent fortune when they're attached with the Farseer. And they get a 5+ Feel No Pain against psychic attacks, as well as 2 wounds apiece. So even though I wish the 5+ Feel No Pain was better, I wish it was against everything, well, you just can't win them all. So these guys are a little bit tougher. They're not that much tougher, but they are pretty durable for, Eldar units. For our anti-large, we have 2 Warwalkers with Bright Lances. Warwalkers are good choices in this list because the list already has a lot of fortune in it. So a lot of our units are going to be at -1 to wound. And natively, Warwalkers are -1 to wound. So it's kind of like having 2 extra fortunes in your list if you think about it. So Warwalkers are in here. They're pretty tough. They work well with a lot of Fate dice, interactions, and stuff like that. And they're just a solid pick. Also, because they have Scouts, they're able to kind of deny movement from enemy units. And considering we have no Rangers in this list, we do need a way to create some sort of buffer between us and our opponents if they have Infiltration or Scouts. And lastly, we have a unit of 6 Wind Riders with Shuriken Cannons. This unit is just meant for damage dealing. So dealing with heavier infantry, packing a big punch. You have the Warlock Skyrunner in here. You also have the Farseer Skyrunner, and they're able to do some serious damage as well, especially when they're rerolling hits. And because the Farseer Skyrunner has Guide, it doesn't always have to be the closest target. So if you want to shoot at something that's not going to be the closest target or that's on an objective, you can still reroll those hit rolls. And of course, the Twin-Link Shuriken Catapults will be rerolling the wounds. So this is actually a very powerful unit that can do quite a lot of damage against heavy infantry targets. And something some of you might not have thought about yet, But Wind Riders are actually a great recipient of Fire and Fade, especially if you're running them with a Farseer and a Warlock and, it's a kind of expensive unit. You want to be able to protect them. And if you have Fortune on them, they're pretty much immune to most indirect fire weapons. So unless the indirect fire is really powerful, they're going to be brushing off a lot of that. So indirect fire that's kind of on the weaker side is going to be something that these guys can weather quite effectively. And they're also just a great objective unit in the late game because they can move so fast with, again, Fire and Fade. All right, so in conclusion, making an effective Ulthwe style list in 10th edition is still very possible despite it being a lot different to how it's played in 9th. In 9th, it was a very control-based and board control-based list. Now it is a more aggressive and hard-hitting style. So although it can be quite effective, do keep this in mind, there are a few matchups where it will struggle, especially against armored infantry and things with a lot of really effective Overwatch. So I know Overwatch and its potential was nerfed, but Overwatch can still be quite powerful because a lot of your hard-hitting units have a low range. So they have Flamer range, which is 12 inches, which also, unfortunately, puts them in range of rapid fire. So do keep that in mind and just, play safe with them. You do have to make sure that all the pieces are in place before making an all-out attack. And to do this, you might have to just think through your strategy one or two times and, kind of formulate a game plan to get around that Overwatch and those other powerful reactive stratagems that your opponent can use. However, I will say the list is a lot of fun. So I've played this a couple times. I really haven't mastered it myself, but the theory is sound behind its success. So if any of you want to try this out and let me know how your games go, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section or just shoot me an email and tell me how your games went using this kind of strategy. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Thank you to all my patrons and supporters who have helped the channel over the last months. Your support is greatly appreciated and has helped the channel immensely. If you do want to become a Patreon member and support the channel, I have free trials activated, which grant you permanent access to our Discord community, which is a community of Eldar players who like to talk about strategy, tactics, and of course, hobbying. I'll leave the link for that in the description below. I am also an Amazon affiliate, and I do have a channel store page if you want to grab some Eldar-inspired apparel to rep at local game store, or if you want to grab some discounted Eldar miniatures on Amazon with, 100% return policy typically, then I will also leave those links in the description. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching once again, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.